And we are back to another Monday already. It's March 16th, 2026, and it's swamp time. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for daily updates you probably won't find in the mainstream. Every article is linked below in the description. And if the video is too long for you, the highlight clips will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow morning during the 8 a.m. Eastern hour. We're going to start here with the White House. President Trump signs an executive order today committing to seek out and crush fraud with a new anti-fraud task force led by VP J.D. Vance. Quote, if we have half of the fraud that's taken place in this country, we would have much more than a balanced budget. That's the kind of numbers you're talking about, President Donald J. Trump. Let's hear.
Look at the Minnesota scam. A lot of it has to do with Somalia. Nobody's calling out anybody, but a lot of it has to do with Somalia and plenty of others. And I believe the governor is complicit. I believe Ilhan Omar is complicit. I believe that your attorney general is complicit, and if they are, you're going to hopefully find out about it, and you're going to have to do what you have to do.
Hell yeah, do what you got to do.
We found half of the fraud that's taking place in this country, and I think you have a chance of doing that. We would have much more than a balanced budget. That's the kind of numbers you're talking about. The theft is incredible.
Oh yeah, man, they're talking potentially in the trillions of dollars. I don't know what time frame they're talking about exactly. Is it potentially trillions of dollars a year? I don't know if that would even surprise anybody at this point. I mean, what could surprise you at this point with the scale of corruption that our government's been engaged in probably since before I was born in the 80s? Vice President Vance says halting payments and criminal prosecutions are two important steps needed to root out our systemic fraud in the United States. One of the cool things about what we're doing is we're trying to take some innovative steps to ensure that when we find criminal fraud, we can actually prosecute it all the way to the end. Let's hope so.
There are two obvious tools that we have to stop the fraud that's happening against the American people. One is that when we see evidence of fraud, we stop the payments. Pretty simple, right? We know that the American people
Trump
are
be
being frauded.
chillaxing.
Let's try to stop the payments and ensure that
he knows JD's got this.
Is actually complying with some basic due diligence and making sure the payments are going to the right place. I think the second tool, of course, we have, as the president mentioned, is we have law enforcement options. We know that some of this fraud is just bad. Some of it's criminal. We know that people are intentionally trying to defraud the American people. It's not just in Minnesota.
All of it's criminal.
99% is criminal.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, President Trump.
It's
all criminal, J.D. Vance.
DOJ is such an important part of this is because
some criminal might
we have to make sure that where we see criminal conduct, we actually prosecute it. And the president's talked about this a lot in the past. I don't need to repeat it, but it's worth noting that so many times when we find people engaged in really, really bad conduct, you know, the local judge or the local grand jury tries to stop it. One of the cool things about what we're doing is we're trying to take some innovative steps to ensure that when we find criminal fraud, we can actually prosecute it all the way to the end.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. But quick note on the grand jury. You can actually bring the same case before the grand jury, technically unlimited times. And you don't even have to completely rebuild the entire case from scratch. If you want, you could just leave the case as is and just convene another grand jury. It's happened before. I'm sure it happens probably a lot more frequently than even I think it does. Maybe they just convene a grand jury over and over again until eventually they agree to indict, which in Washington, D.C., at least the federal grand juries, they indict like 99% of the time anyway, or it's like 98% of the time. All right. Another one from Vice President Vance. Let's just go straight to it.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a very important whole-of-government approach to tackle the fraud problem. And let me just tell one story.
It's awesome, man. It's about damn time.
This executive order
had to lead with this, man.
We're able to stop under the president's leadership is we saw evidence that in Minneapolis there were Somalis, primarily illegal immigrants, who were defrauding a Medicaid program that was meant to go to autistic children. So they were taking children who were
hundreds of millions of dollars.
Benefits, and they were claiming that their kids were actually autistic even though they weren't. And what did this mean? This meant two things. Number one, you had a lot of people getting rich off of the fraud while American citizens got poor. And the second thing that it meant is that you had autistic kids in Minneapolis, in suburban Minneapolis, who weren't getting benefits they needed because Somali fraudsters were literally stealing out of their pocket. It's got to stop. And unfortunately, that kind of fraud is one example of probably hundreds just within the state of Minneapolis, and then it's repeated and replayed all over the United States of America. When we first started talking about this problem, the president made it very clear he wanted us to take the fraud problem seriously because nobody had until he was president. We started to figure out one big hole that existed is that the agencies of the government weren't actually talking to each other. So Treasury would have evidence of financial fraud, but wasn't talking to the Department of Justice about it. Health and Human Services had evidence of Medicaid fraud, but wasn't talking to the Department of Treasury about it. So what this executive order does is force the entire
links them all together.
The federal government
to
do two things: stop the fraud on the American taxpayer and make sure that the benefits that ought by right go to American citizens and not to fraudsters. Andrew Ferguson will be the vice chair, and it's going to do a great job.
Taxes.
If you're curious what's the difference between the vice chair and the chair, the vice chair is going to do all the work, and I'm going to take all the credit. Andrew.
Look, anybody out there with any kind of a photographic memory, if you're a diehard watcher of politics, especially with regard to the Oval Office as Trump has laid out, how long has this eagle been there for? I haven't noticed this eagle. I don't think I've ever even noticed it before. It's probably been there the whole time. I'm just not being observant enough. However, that thing, solid gold, I assume, because that's how Trump does it. All right, so let's see what else we got. I got a few of these. There's a few to get through. I mean, big news today, man. And the entire event was somewhere around an hour. That's how long that the full version of this meeting and this official signing took. And I don't have an entire hour to sit through it, so I just grabbed the highlights instead. Quote, "This is a very big thing that we're doing, having to do with all of the fraud that's taken place in our country. The president prepares to sign an executive order establishing a vice president-led task force to root out fraud, as outlined in his State of the Union address."
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. This is a big thing that we're doing. It's about
it's
fraud
enormous.
Having to do with all the fraud that's taking place in our country. And we have two people that are extremely brilliant and just very talented, and they're going to be put in charge. But I'd like to ask Will, if you would, to give a little description of what we're signing, the executive order, and then I'll ask JD to speak.
Yes, sir. As you stated in your State of the Union address, in light of widespread revelations of fraud in federally funded programs in states like Minnesota and California, this executive order in front of you will establish a new task force aimed at rooting out that fraud, returning potentially billions or tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of dollars to the American taxpayer. This task force will be chaired by the vice president. The vice chairman will be the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, who's with us here as well today. But this is going to launch a whole-of-government approach to rooting out the very serious problem of fraud in federally funded programs around the country.
Yeah, dude, it's like a million other executive orders that Trump has already signed. It's nothing short of effing BS that this even has to be done in the first place. Blue states taking the 10th Amendment for a hell of a long ride, as they always do. Stephen Miller, under President's leadership, and then, of course, with VP, and A. Ferguson, FTC, at the FTC. He's the chairman of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson. We are going to see the first ever effort in American history to reclaim the ultimately trillions. I thought there was a T in there somewhere. Trillions of dollars that were stolen from taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, under President Trump's leadership, as we've seen, the illegal flow across the southern border was stopped completely. But what we found since President Trump came into office is that the Democrats have set up a system to funnel hundreds of billions and ultimately trillions of dollars to migrants that are in our country, oftentimes from places like Somalia. So as an example, ICE recently asked a group of illegal immigrants that were in detention whether or not they were receiving Medicaid. Half of them raised their hands and volunteered that they were on Medicaid. Just volunteered that. These aren't the ones who are hiding it, right? They also asked illegal aliens how they paid their medical bills, and they said that if they don't have Medicaid, they go to hospitals, they get free care there, and they bill it to the taxpayers. So they aren't paying for any of their own health care in this country. This is one example. And we've seen this over and over and over again. So under President Trump's leadership, and then, of course, with JD and the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, we're going to see the first ever effort in American history to reclaim the ultimately trillions of dollars that were stolen from taxpayers. I believe, and I know President Trump believes, that when this theft is exposed, we will see that if all of it were stopped, it would be enough to balance the budget. The extraction of wealth from American taxpayers,
that's fucking
people
insane.
Who don't belong here,
and he's probably right.
Is the
That's the scary
primary cause of the national debt, and this is the first ever effort to shut that down. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, at the very least, if they balanced it, they would stop the freaking bleeding. And, of course, the Democrats, they like to make Stephen Miller out to be this controversial figure, to put it lightly, actually. But I like the guy. I don't really seem to find a reason to dislike him. I mean, he's got a treasure trove of based-ass statements that he's just peddling out constantly, at least on the X platform. At least so far that I've heard. I know that they like to try to paint him as just this evil minion that works in the Trump regime. All right. A Ferguson FTC. So this is from another one from Andrew Ferguson at the FTC. So let's hear this one out.
Millions and millions of Americans pay into these programs every day, and they expect to get something out of it. And this fraud is just siphoning money that millions of Americans pay to fund their hospitals, to fund their daycare centers, into completely fake businesses. It isn't just unfair to all of us as taxpayers who pay for all this. It's particularly unfair to the Americans who need this the most and watch this money leave their hospital, leave their school system, and go out to fraud. And that is why this effort is so important. And I think we've just begun really looking at this, but I think that one of the things we're going to find is that in a lot of these agencies, the previous administration was pretty lax about existing anti-fraud controls, and we're going to expose that too.
Amen. Well, God willing, we're going to get to the bottom of it, for crying out loud. And Somalia, yeah, I'm sure that's what he meant to say, is a third world, maybe a fourth world nation. They come here and they steal $19 billion. It's crazy, says President Trump on the anti-fraud task force. Ilhan, Minnesota, I hope this is part of it. She married her brother, supposedly. She's one of the ringleaders, as she is.
Everyone knows they've been cheating for years. It's the first
over a decade.
And it's got to be stopped.
And that's according to Governor Tim Walz.
Think of it. Somalia is a third world, maybe a fourth world nation. One of the worst, one of the most dangerous. They don't have anything. They don't have councils. They don't have government. They don't have police. They shoot each other all over the place. They come here and they steal $19 billion. That's crazy. And Ilhan Omar.
A lot of it went to fund terrorism. They should all be charged with terrorism. All these fraudsters.
I mean, there's a lot of documentation. That means she's here illegally and she's a congresswoman. And I hope you're going to be looking at that, or somebody is, all right? Because
hopefully.
She's one of the ringleaders here. She's bad news, really bad news. She's so bad for our country.
Yeah, just like Nancy Pelosi. She's magically worth $30 million, and she's only been in Congress for a few years. Only gets $174,000 a year for her paycheck, for her salary as a member of Congress. But somehow her husband has amassed $30 million. And I think it was only in a single year. It was only in the last year, like the year before, over a year ago, he was worth, what was it, like $1 million? And 2 years ago, they had like something like $5,000 worth of assets between them, something like that. Okay, one more from the president on why other leaders haven't taken steps to root out fraud. Because they're crooked. Because they make money, they gain power. Like with the Somalians, they vote in a block, 100%. They make a deal with the Somalians. They all vote because they're on a gravy train.
You said during your State of the Union that this type of fraud, the corruption, is the type of thing that can shred the fabric of a nation. Why do you suppose then that leaders in recent memory haven't looked at the systemic amount of fraud that's taking place?
Yeah, they're probably in on it.
Because they're crooked. They make money. They gain
They get
power,
campaign
they
donations
use it
to
for
look the other
power.
way, probably.
Like with the Somalians, they vote in a block, 100%. They make a deal with the Somalians. They all vote because they're on a gravy train.
They've been doing this a long time, man.
It's coming.
They got ways of keeping it hidden.
Money first, power second. A lot of people say power first. No, it's money first.
It should be the American
Power
people
second.
first.
Did you ever see where, like, Mercedes, people come over from Somalia, they have no money, and now they're buying
Okay. He's talking about
cars.
Somalians. I was talking about members of Congress.
It's more cash goes out of the Minnesota airport than any other place in the world.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's something like $2-3 million a week in cash.
It's really bad. The governor's corrupt. The attorney general's totally corrupt. Just like the New York State attorney general, Letitia James. She's a highly corrupt person. Bragg, the DA, is a corrupt person. They're all corrupt. These are corrupt people. And we got too many of them in our country. And we have to expose them, and we have to catch them. And if these two guys can't, these are high IQ people. I've always liked high IQ. These are high IQ people. If they don't do it, we're going to go a long way, fellas, to find somebody else that's going to. We have no choice. If honestly, and they may not do a good job. If they don't do a good job,
we're screwed.
It's possible. If they don't do a good job,
hell, everybody might as well dive into that
yes,
point.
Go ahead.
Thanks, sir. 2 questions for
And I think they're going to do a great job. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't even know, man. It's really hard to even tell anymore. I guess it just all depends on the team that he assembles and how much other things that they might have on their plate. But anyway, quick comment on the cash from the suitcases. If you've been following the swamp for a while, we went over videos of airport workers in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, that were interviewed about the suitcases full of cash and how millions of dollars, like anywhere between something like $1 to $2 million in cash that they would have in suitcases. Like, what is it? $1 million in $100 bills weighs like what, like 18 pounds or something like that. I don't remember the number offhand, but it's not as lightweight. But anyway, they would just go right through the airport through customs, and whoever's in charge, the supervisor at customs, they would just sign off on it. Well, they declared it. They filled out whatever the form is, declaring that they've got X amount of millions of dollars in cash with them, and they would just let them through. And that went on for years. Like this guy that worked in TSA or airport security worked there for something like 6 or 7 years. He said every single week the same guys would come through. And he said, and they did that for years. And they would go straight to Somalia. Well, I think that they would connect in like Atlanta or something like that. All right, from the White House, the first ever effort in American history to reclaim trillions of dollars stolen from U.S. taxpayers. This is the entire video. Let me just get a length as to how long it is. And it is 54 minutes in total, so I'll repost this. There's a direct link to my profile down below in the description if you want to have a look at it there. Or you could just go to @WhiteHouse over on the X platform. You don't have to be signed in, as I always say. I know on Instagram and there's some other social media apps where you have to create an account to be able to view anything. It's not the case at the X platform. You can just go straight there and watch the video for yourself. Rapid Response 47, the president. It'll be wrapped up soon. This is with regard to Iran, so we're moving on past the task force. We're going to have a much safer world. I had an obligation to do this. You want to see a stock market go down? Start letting them hit you with nukes, okay?
It'll be soon. Won't be long. And we're going to have a much safer world when it's wrapped up. It'll be
got the B2 on the table.
Soon. We're going to have a much safer world.
On the president's desk.
I had an
Kennedy
obligation
desk, right?
to do this. I didn't want to. I called it an excursion. I didn't want to make this journey. We had the highest stock market in history. We had low gas prices. Everything was good. And I know exactly. I know what you're going to do it. And people are going to raise the price of oil. And that's good. But I know that. But that's a very small thing compared to allowing them to have. You want to see a stock market go down? Start letting them hit you with nukes, okay?
At least try.
I said it this
Even
morning,
trying to.
I think it's a very small price to pay. And frankly, I thought it was going to go down much more, if you want to know the truth. I assumed that it was going to go down much more, only because people don't understand.
Oh, the stock market?
It's a big chess game. At a very high level. It's a very high level chess.
Especially when you're dragging oil into it,
and
man.
I'm dealing with very smart players. These are smart
Lifeblood
people.
of the country.
Get there. When you deal with some of these people, you're dealing with high level intellect, very high IQ people. These are not Jasmine Crockett and her group. These are smart people. These are really smart people, and violent people, and vicious people, and some very nice people. And some are very nice but violent. They turn violent. But you know what? If I didn't do what I did, we would have been hit. Number one, very important, was the termination of Obama's horrible deal. And number two, this beautiful plane hitting them 8 months ago, whatever it was.
Was it 20,000-pound bombs?
That totally threw them for a loop. If they had that bomb at either time, 5 years ago or 7 months ago, if they had that bomb would have been used almost immediately.
Well, yeah, there's no question that they would at least attempt to use it in one way or another. Would it be used against our American soil all the way across the ocean? Probably not. I would assume they would probably just end up firing it straight at Israel. That would just be my guess. And by the way, oil, at least last time I looked, it did pass $100 a barrel. Or maybe not. I stand corrected. Somewhere on the news, they said that it passed $100 a barrel. Maybe I misheard it. Maybe they said that it's on track to pass over $100 a barrel today. It didn't go over $100 a barrel today. It's at $94.13, which it's still high. I mean, that's not a low number. It looks like it topped out at $98, almost $99 a barrel earlier. So anyway, so that's the latest with regard to oil prices. And we've got one more with regard to Iran. Well, I mean, we've got more with regard to Iran. This is the last video with regard to Trump and his meeting earlier today with the vice president. When they say death to America, you should believe them, because if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it, says the president.
Well, so far, nobody knows. If you look at his father, he used to give talks a lot, talking about death to America. He'd say death to America all the time. When they say death to America, you should believe them, because that's what.
Yeah, you kind of
If they
should.
had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it, but they never had the chance. I never.
Not a
gave
very
them
friendly
chance
thing to
use it.
say.
And other presidents should have done. I spoke to one of the former presidents who I actually like. I actually speak to some. I do like some people. It'd be shocking. And he said, "I wish I did what you did. Could have done it." Other presidents.
Well, hell, it could have been
somebody
any
should
of
have
them.
done it. 47 years this went on.
Which president do you think he's
They
talking
call
about?
Iran the bully of the Middle East. And
Maybe
you
George
could have
W.
never had the Abraham Accords. You could
No,
never
dude, that would have
have
been a
peace
nightmare.
in the Middle East. Now you're going to have peace. You could never do it with the dark cloud of a nuclear Iran. But Iran is a shell of itself. It's no longer a bully. It's the one that gets bullied. It's a bully that got beat up. We beat the crap out of them, and they deserve that.
Yeah, I don't know which president that would have been. Maybe Obama, maybe Clinton. I'm kind of leaning toward Clinton, maybe, because he was the president during, I would say, maybe the most peaceful decade that we've had, maybe in forever. And the 90s was a pretty chillax period of time to finish off the 20th century. Overton, President Trump jokes that he just set a record in Iran, obliterating over 100 naval vessels in just over a week. President Trump says more than 100 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk or destroyed over the last week and a half. Looks like we got a couple more quotes, so let's hear it from the president.
More than 100 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk or destroyed over the last week and a half. That has to be some kind of a record. Additional strikes continue to launch from all directions every single hour. More than 100 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk or destroyed over the last week and a half. That has to be some kind of a record. Additional strikes continue to launch from all directions every single hour. More than 100 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk.
Oh shit, I'm sorry. I was paying attention down here saying that there were 6,000 flights that were canceled. Didn't even realize that it already looped, only 15 seconds. Wake up! All right, President, we attacked Karg Island and literally destroyed everything on the island except the area where the oil is. We left the pipes. We didn't want to do that, but we could do that on 5 minutes' notice. But for purposes of someday rebuilding Iran, we did the right thing.
And as you know, we attacked Karg Island and
of course, that could be subject to change.
Knocked it, literally destroyed everything on the island except for the area where the oil is. I call it the pipes. We left the pipes. We didn't want to do that, but that we will do that. We can do that on 5 minutes notice. It'll be over. But for purposes of someday rebuilding that country, I guess we did the right thing. But it may not stay that way. Just one simple word and the pipes will be gone too, but it'll take a long time to rebuild that. We are aggressively dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, and ability to rebuild its missiles and drone capability is getting down to close to zero.
Yeah, very tactile, very, very strategic what they're doing, trying to line it up just right. And as far as my understanding goes, they haven't hit their electrical infrastructure in any widespread way for the same reason. Because if the Iranian people decide to take back their country, it'd be nice to at least not put them in a situation where they have to rebuild their entire electrical infrastructure and oil infrastructure too. All right, one more breaking. President Trump announces the U.S. is crushing Iran's ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz. Over 30 mine-laying ships have been destroyed already.
And we're hammering their capacity to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz with more than 30 mine-laying ships destroyed. We hit, to the best of our knowledge, all of their mine-laying ships. Now they can put them on other types of ships, I guess, and drop them in. But we don't know that any have even been dropped in. We're not sure that any have been. That's a big negative for them if they do it. It's a form of suicide. But we don't know that they have dropped any in.
I'm sure it is.
We've hit all 30 of their ships and destroyed them. They're all at the bottom of the sea.
Well, and I'm sure the likes of the Space Force, the Air Force, satellite tracking, just constantly monitoring the Strait of Hormuz. I'm sure they've got eyes all over the place. So if any ships were to try to sneak in under the cover of darkness from Iran to try to start laying mines, I would assume that somebody's watching and they would notice, like, the second that somebody starts to get into any funny business out there. Just in, President Trump announces that if Iran places mines in the Strait of Hormuz, it's formed pseudo. Okay, we did see that one. And so these are from different accounts, so sometimes they overlap a little bit. I just try to grab the ones that are known as the highlights. Trump on the Strait of Hormuz. We strongly encourage other nations whose economies depend on the strait far more than ours. We want them to come and help us with the strait. I don't know if they're actually going to.
We are aggressively dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, and ability to rebuild its missiles and drone capability is getting down to close to zero. And we're hammering their capacity to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, with more than 30 mine-laying ships destroyed. We hit, to the best of our knowledge, all of their mine-laying ships. Now they can put them on other types of ships, I guess, and drop them in. But we don't know that any have even been dropped in. We're not.
Let me skip a little bit because this is a few minutes long.
We strongly encourage other nations whose economies depend on the Strait far more than ours. You know, we get less than 1% of our oil from the Strait, and some countries get
Asia
much
gets
more.
a lot.
Japan gets 95%.
Yeah, same with South
China
Korea, I
gets
think.
90%. Many of the Europeans get quite a bit. South Korea gets 35%. So we
35.
want them to come and help us with the Strait. We have it in very good shape. The countries, I said, we've already taken care of Iran, but now, because of the fact that literally a single terrorist can put something in the water or shoot something or shoot a missile, a small missile.
Well, you know, if Japan had any form of an offensive military, this would be the perfect opportunity for them to do exactly that, have a show of force.
And it's fairly close range
Protect
because
their
it
interests.
is a tight area, and which is one of the reasons they've always used that as a weapon. Iran has always used that as an economic weapon, and it's not going to be able to be used very long. Numerous countries have told me they're on the way. Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't. Some are countries that we've helped for many, many years.
Yeah, they don't want to appear racist.
Them from horrible outside
Islamophobia.
sources, and they weren't that enthusiastic. And the level of enthusiasm, it matters to me. We have some countries where we have 45,000 soldiers, great soldiers, protecting them from harm's way. And we have done a great job. And when we want to know, do you have any minesweepers? Well, would rather not get involved, sir. I said, for 40 years we're protecting you, and you don't want to get involved in something that is very minor. Very few shots going to be taken because they don't have many shots left. But they said, would rather not get involved. I just want the fake news media and everybody else to remember that was said, because I've been a big critic of all of the protecting of countries, because I know that we'll protect them.
Yeah, they won't protect us.
If we ever needed help, they won't be there for us. I've just
Probably
known
not.
that for a long period of time.
Bullshit.
Just like I knew about the Strait, that it would be a weapon, which I predicted a long time ago. Predicted all of this stuff. You guys were very generous in that. I predicted all of it.
Yeah, and you know what? They should have dismantled NATO as soon as the Soviet Union fell, because Trump illustrates exactly that. Like, at this point, what is the point if we're not all going to work to achieve the same objectives that keep the West safe, secure, and wealthy? Then what the hell is the point? All right, Benny Johnson. President Trump says that since Operation Epic Fury began, 100-plus Iranian naval vessels sunk or destroyed, 90% of reduction in ballistic missile launches, 95% reduction in drone attacks, and 7,000 targets struck. Awesome.
Powerful military
Let's get this wrapped up, man, as soon as
to end
possible.
the threats posed by the Iranian regime continued in full force over the past few days. They have been literally obliterated. The Air Force is gone. The Navy is gone. Many, many ships have been sunk. They're warfighting ships, but I guess they
Over
don't know how
100.
to use them. And anti-aircraft is decimated. Their radar is gone, and their leaders are gone. Other than that, they're doing quite well. They've been...
Well, supposedly the new leader of Iran, the Khamenei's son, I read somewhere, I think it was CNN, that said that they got word that he had his leg amputated, that he was severely injured during the blast that killed his father on the 28th of February. And then there's other reports that he just got a twisted ankle or a fractured foot or something like that. I saw another rumor out there that he's in a coma currently, and that's why he hasn't been on camera since that happened.
Terror for 47 years, and now I guess the world, through the United States, with the help of Israel, is doing what should have been done many years ago. Should have been done many years ago. Since the beginning of the conflict, we've struck more than 7,000 targets across Iran, and these have been mostly commercial and military targets. We've achieved a 90% reduction in their ballistic missile launches and a 95% reduction in drone attacks. The missiles are trickling in now at very low levels because
there's rumors that China's supplying them.
They don't have too many missiles left. We've also attacked
videos of trucks arriving,
manufacturing plants, where the places where they manufacture the missiles and the drones, and that's going on today. We just hit 3 of them today, and it's getting very hard for them to manufacture. More than 100 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk or destroyed over the last week and a half. That has to be some kind of a record. Additional strikes continue to launch from all directions every single hour.
Yeah, allegedly, China, they're sending in missiles or munitions by truck into Pakistan, and they'll go through Pakistan and then they'll arrive in Iran. I'm sure that's unconfirmed. It's just something I came across, so take that with a grain of salt. Breaking President Trump hints that major repercussions are coming for NATO allies refusing to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Mr. Speaker, I'll be reporting to you in the House and the Senate. I'll say, why are we protecting countries that won't protect us? And so on and so forth. Let's hear it from President Trump.
That we've been protecting for about 40 years at, tens of billions of dollars, Mr. Speaker. So I'll be reporting that to you in the House and the Senate. And I'll say, why are we protecting countries that don't protect us? And I've always felt that was a weakness of NATO. We were going to protect them, but I always said, when in need, they won't protect us. Now, this isn't need. Need would be one of the big boys. But I will say that we built the greatest military in the world.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that they will, of course, they won't say it out in the public, but we all know they don't want to look racist, Islamophobic, and blah, blah, blah. Just pick your acronym, pick your buzzword. And the problem with that is that whatever nation that we would be in any kind of conflict with, they could just conveniently use that as an out. Of course, again, they're going to say that behind closed doors. They don't want to say that out in the open, even though they kind of sort of say it out in the open. All right, anyway, townhall.com, LOL, the president rates his talks with the French president. Oh, okay, so he knocks the French president.
Tell us if you have spoken with French President Macron about the coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Have you been speaking with the French president?
What does that mean?
Have you been speaking with the French President Macron about the coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I have spoken to him. He's been on a scale of 0 to 10. I'd say he's been an 8.
Oh, okay.
Not perfect.
It's not bad.
But it's France.
Are you confident?
Oh, shit.
Are you confident that France will help with the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think he's going to help. I mean, I'll let you know. I spoke to him yesterday. I don't do a hard sell on them because my attitude is we don't need anybody. We're the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them. But
the problem that will arise is money. I mean, all of these missiles that we're launching, all the technology, all the manpower that we're using costs a hell of a lot of money, and the military doesn't have a limitless amount of money. I know that Trump, during his first administration, he says that they spent almost $1 trillion rebuilding the military, and every year the military gets hundreds of billions of dollars in funding. However, when it comes to a conflict of this magnitude, that money is going to be just running dry really quick. And of course, there's going to be a point in time where the Trump administration is going to have to go to Congress and get funding to continue this effort if needed. Hopefully, they'll finish this off really quick. but that would certainly be nice if other countries would pitch in. That way they could carry some of the financial load and we wouldn't have to handle all of it ourselves and have to bleed our military dry financially.
It's interesting. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react. Because
that's a fair point, too.
That if we ever did need them, they won't be there. Not all of them, but they won't be there.
Yeah, make the case to dismantle NATO.
The United Kingdom. Because the United Kingdom...
And the UN.
2 weeks ago, I said, why don't you send some ships over? And he really didn't want to do it. I said,
he really reluctantly
did. We've been with you. You're our oldest ally. And we spend a lot of money on, NATO and all of these things to protect you. I mean, we're protecting them. We're working with them.
Well, they've got bases
Ukraine.
in the region.
Ukraine's
They've got assets
of miles
there.
Away, separated by a vast ocean. We don't have to do that, but we did it. Well, Biden did it. I mean, I have to be honest with you. Biden got taken to the cleaners. But we worked with them in Ukraine. We don't need to work with them in Ukraine. And then they...
Yeah, the major base in question that I know of is the one in Cyprus. I guess Britain's got this big base in Cyprus, and they didn't want to send any ships out there to defend it. And I believe it was France that went out there, and they sent a fleet of ships over that way to defend their interests, because I think maybe France has a presence there on Cyprus also, because I want to say they were hit by Iran. Either that or Iran sent missiles after them during the first days of this conflict, and Britain didn't want to do anything. So, I mean, Trump really had to put the pressure on them to get them to do anything. President provides an update on Operation Epic Fury. They want to negotiate badly, as they should, but I don't think they're ready to do what they have to do. We will finish the job. We'll see.
We had some very good results today, as you probably heard, in Iran. Very strong results militarily. Results. We're talking to countries about policing the straits, because they are the ones, we don't get very little, 1%, 2%. China, as an example, gets about 90% of its oil from the Hormuz Strait. And nice to have other countries police that with us, and we'll help.
Uh-oh. What the hell? All right, I restarted my browser. I don't know what's going on with that. Let's give this another try.
With us, and we'll help. We'll work militarily. As far as I'm concerned, we've essentially defeated Iran. I guess they can have a little bit of fight back, but not much. Not much. We've taken out their air forces, we've taken out their navy, we've taken out their air defense, and there's no air defense whatsoever. We've taken out their leadership times 2 or 3, might be 3, we'll find out soon. But militarily, it's been amazing. We attacked Karg Island, and we left just the one little area standing, and the standing part is where they have the pipes, where the oil pipes come in. And we can do that on 5 minutes notice. We have it all locked and loaded and ready to go if we want to do it. We chose not to do it. I chose not to do it yet. We'll see what happens. They want to negotiate. They want to negotiate badly. I don't think they're ready. Just on what I'm hearing, they want to negotiate badly, as they should. But I don't think they're ready to do what they have to do. But I think they will be ready at some point. But we're doing very well with respect to that whole situation in Iran. We are talking to other countries about working with us for the policing of the strait. And I think we're getting good response. If we do, that's great. And if we don't, that's great too. Remember, like as an example, in many cases, the NATO countries, we're always there for NATO. We're helping them with Ukraine. As many, it's got an ocean in between us. It doesn't affect us, but we've helped them. It'd be interesting to see what country wouldn't help us with a very small endeavor, which is just keeping the strait open. That, by comparison, is a small endeavor.
Yeah, it's not a lot to ask.
Iran has very little firepower left.
Just a show of presence.
Their missiles are down to a low number. You see, they're shooting very few of them. You know why? Because they don't have very many of them. And because we've decimated their manufacturing capability. Likewise.
Oh, good grief, man. What the hell? All right, I rebooted the internet. We just had some rough weather roll through. My upload speed was like less than a megabit per second, but I did another test. It's back up to where it should be. All systems go, hopefully. So hopefully it won't glitch out again.
Drones are way down. They're down to about 20%. But they still have some. I think they're pretty tough. But the drones are down, and we're starting
Not that the video quality should have affected it. This is atrocious. C-SPAN, come on.
We have the strongest military anywhere in the world by far, not even a contest.
Of course we do. We always got the strongest military. All right, rock and roll. Got to the end of that video. Rapid response. Not sure where they pulled this video from, but I don't get it, man. All these government accounts, they upload these videos that are just the grainiest, crappiest quality, and it's auto. I mean, I can't set it any higher. Oh yeah, hold on a second. See, even setting it at 720. Let me see if that does anything. I know it's not going to, but oh, wait a minute. Actually, maybe it did. So why didn't it automatically play some? Oh, maybe it was because my internet quality from earlier. Okay, all right, whatever. Technical difficulties. All right, apologies. Let's just roll on to the next one. Forget that just happened. Ryan Saavedra. President Trump on the possibility of there being a political prize for the war with Iran. More quotes, more quotes. Let's play it. Here we go. Oh, much better. There we go. I mean, 1080p would be a lot better than this. Whatever. Beggars can't be choosers.
I have to do what's right. You know, political and sure, everybody is concerned. I have to do what's right. I can't say that, you know, gee, I don't want to have any impact on oil prices for 3 or 4 weeks or 2 months, and we're going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon and blow up the entire Middle East and beyond, right? Because, you know, they were going to blow up the Middle East. If I didn't terminate the Obama horrible deal, the Iran nuclear deal, it's called, if I didn't terminate that in my first term, they would have already had.
You know what, frankly, I think he's probably right, to be honest with you.
Immediately upon getting it.
They would have been threatening everybody.
Bombers to bomb the hell out of it and obliterate, and that's what it was. We obliterated.
But you know what? I think what Iran would have actually done if they achieved the building of a nuclear weapon, they would have tried to keep it as top secret as possible. That way they could build another one and another and another to the point where they had an arsenal, to the point where they really could start threatening other countries, essentially all simultaneously. I don't know. You know, what do I know? That's just my opinion.
And stop all their potential nuclear. If I didn't do that, you would have had Israel and the Middle East hit by nuclear weapons. And we wouldn't be talking about this right now.
Of course, it wouldn't have been a 50 megaton Tsar Bomba, but a nuclear weapon, still dangerous, even if it's 15 kilotons.
Most incredible attacks anyone's ever seen. Late at night, dark, no moon, and every single bomb went right down those chutes and blew the whole place apart. If I didn't do that, you would have had nuclear warfare in the Middle East, and I think Israel would have been obliterated, and I think lots of the Middle East would have been. And you saw that when they sent.
It'd be pretty stupid on their part. It'd be a suicide mission.
Didn't expect anything.
So obviously, we would exchange fire.
And yet, you look at what happened with Kuwait, UAE, Saudi Arabia.
Oh, all of them, man.
Qatar.
It was like, what, 12, 14 countries were hit by Iran.
So they got along. And all of a sudden, they're being barraged by missiles. These people.
Because it's a terrorist regime.
On the entire Middle East. And that was their plan, take over the whole Middle East. And it failed with the nuclear. And then they had thousands of missiles. And for the most part, largely, we've now destroyed those missiles. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, well, there's probably some facilities below ground. Maybe we might have some trouble getting at. However, I'm sure that we've probably already wiped out at least all the ones that we know of. I mean, there's probably a few here and there that maybe we're not aware of. Although I kind of find that a little hard to believe, especially with the insane technology that we have. The CIA assets on the ground. I'm sure that they've probably dug up a lot of information over the years, over the last 47 years. Eric Doherty, update: the IRGC headquarters in Hamadan, Iran, is getting absolutely destroyed by Allied strikes as President Trump and Israel vowed to continue pummeling the regime. No holding back, not even close. Yeah, we got the snow-capped mountains being that time of year in Iran, getting that snow. And ash, smoke, soot, fire, brimstone. All right, U.S. Central Command. Thousands of Iranian military targets have been struck by U.S. forces to neutralize threats posed by the Iranian regime now and into the future. And another one. Good grief. Yeah, that one had missiles on it. Well, they probably all do, really. They probably all have missiles on them. And real quick, before I move on, let me just check here with Central Command. I haven't had a look at it in a couple hours just to see if they have anything new to report, and they do. From an hour ago, Iran's IRGC claims it recently destroyed several U.S. fighter jets based in the region using missiles and drones. It's a lie. No U.S. fighter jets have been struck by Iran. In fact, U.S. Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps fighter aircraft continue to demonstrate unmatched lethality and air superiority during strike waves into Iran. That's the truth. And looks like I didn't bookmark this either, but this came out 2 hours ago. I think I wrapped up my research for tonight's episode just over 2 hours ago, so I barely missed this. So this is the update, March 16th, Operation Epic Fury. Of course, we understand the overview at this point. We're going after Iran, trying to obliterate the regime. Combat flights so far have numbered 6,500 plus. I think that's a new number I haven't seen before. Targets struck over 7,000. Iranian vessels damaged or destroyed is up over 100 already. And of course, we've got the U.S. assets deployed. The list just keeps getting longer. And they actually separated it this time. So they've got all the air assets, sea and land assets. And the types of targets, those are all the different Iranian targets. Probably the same list that they had last time. It looks like it's about the same length as it was last time. So that's just a brief update. If you want to read all of that yourself, I'll repost that also to my profile. Direct link down below in the description. And that's probably the last. Yeah, I don't think that I had this one. Hundreds of U.S. fighter jets are part of the largest regional concentration of American military firepower in a generation. And of course, they're sharing a couple of images of our fighter jets way up in the sky. And yeah, so there we go, bookmark. So I'm pretty much caught up with Central Command at that point, or up until now, at least. And from Pete Hegseth, great update. The media should take note. And this is also from Central Command from earlier today. Update from CENTCOM Commander on Operation Epic Fury.
Hi, I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, the Commander of U.S. Central Command, here to provide another update on Operation Epic Fury. First, I want to remember and honor our fallen warriors who made the ultimate sacrifice in the KC-135 refueling aircraft incident last week. We hold their memories and their families, their friends and their teammates in our prayers. Their selfless service and dedication hardens our resolve. For 16 days, we've delivered overwhelming firepower deep into Iran. This past Friday, U.S. forces executed a large-scale precision strike on Karg Island, destroying more than 90 Iranian military targets, including storage bunkers for naval mines and missiles and other military infrastructure.
Good, man. Take out them mines.
To date, our Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps aviators have collectively flown more than 6,000 combat flights, demonstrating the unmatched capability of America's joint force as we maintain air superiority over Iranian skies.
Hell yeah, look at that.
We continue to remain
centered
on our military objectives. These are well-defined and include eliminating Iran's ballistic missiles, drones, and naval threats. Boom. It's one thing to defend by striking launchers and intercepting missiles and drones, but it's another thing to eliminate the wider manufacturing apparatus behind them. And we are doing that today. We've talked about it in concept. Here's what it looks like in reality. Let me show you, for the first time, a few examples of how we are dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, which will prevent threats to the region into the future. Here you see a photo from March 1st of a naval drone storage facility located near the Strait of Hormuz. This is the same location 8 days later, completely destroyed.
Yeah, destroyed.
Next, here's a photo taken of an attack drone production factory.
Well, and also notice how that building wasn't absolutely flattened. I mean, that's how precise that our missiles are that we drop. We just drop it just to obliterate the contents inside the building. We don't have to have just overwhelming explosive power to just annihilate the entire city block. I find that to be a bit interesting.
Next, here's a photo taken of an attack drone production factory in Tehran on March 5th. Here's that same factory 6 days later after
like a tornado ripped it apart.
US airstrikes. And finally, the Yazdi military depot, pictured here last month. These 8 buildings are part of the IRGC's missile command infrastructure and are used to produce light and heavyweight torpedoes. Now, here's the same military depot just last week, or what's left of it.
And I mean, look at this. Like they hit this part of the building, and then they hit this part right there, and then another right there and there. So it's as if they know exactly what it is that they need to take out inside these buildings to that level of precision.
U.S. and partner strikes are doing exactly what they are intended to do, deliver on very clear military objectives to eliminate Iran's ability to project power against Americans and against its neighbors. We're also zeroed in on dismantling Iran's decades-old threat to the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz. Through a combination of air, land, and maritime capabilities, we have successfully destroyed over 100 Iranian naval vessels, and we aren't done. We will continue to rapidly deplete Iran's ability to threaten freedom of navigation.
So their Navy is no more.
Our progress remains steady, and we remain vigilant against the enemy. Now, a few thoughts about Iran. Over the last 2 weeks, they have launched attacks on Oman, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Jordan, Cyprus, Turkey, Azerbaijan, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Iraq, Kuwait, and Bahrain. In each of these countries, they are deliberately attacking innocent civilians. They've done this more than 300 times, which demonstrates their true nature as a global leader of terror. In just the last few days, the Iranian regime launched a reckless attack against civilian neighborhoods in Tel Aviv with cluster bombs, an inherently indiscriminate type of munition. We join countries across the region in condemning this aggression, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with our partners in bolstering.
Oh, we got to take out that extra 10%, man.
I will reinforce what I said before. Iran's capabilities are declining as our capabilities and advantages continue to build. And finally, I'd like to talk about the extraordinary 50,000 Americans who are deployed across the region executing this vital mission.
50,000.
It's long been my belief that every success we have begins and ends with our people. And today I'd like to recognize our unsung heroes, the sustainers enabling America's joint force to unleash this devastating firepower 24/7. To be clear, there's no other military on earth that does logistics like the U.S. military, and our team is at the top of their game today. They're managing distribution networks that span thousands of miles to ensure that munitions, fuel, and supplies reach warfighters on the front line on time, every time. To all our sustainers and logisticians, thank you and keep up the great work. And to the entire Operation Epic Fury team, keep pushing, remain steady, fight to win. Thanks so much and Godspeed.
All right, man. Well, it sounds good so far. That was a pretty good update. Everything seems to be right on schedule, if not a little bit ahead of schedule, maybe. And it definitely seems that Biden and the Democrats back in 2021 through 2024, any thought as to the DEI nonsense and weakening our military from inside and our ability to operate out in the field or in combat, doesn't really seem that it had that devastating of an effect, thank God. And okay, so let's see what else we got. Pete Hegseth, I know some people who need to hear this. So this is from someone who's deployed.
Hey, I don't know who need to hear this. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of people be talking shit about America. Hey, if you don't like America, go to another country, bitch.
Yeah, man, fuck off.
I love this country. I'll protect this bitch.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Love to hear it, man. Need a lot more soldiers just like him. I believe we already have plenty of soldiers just like him, frankly. DOW rapid response. The Iranian regime's leadership is desperate and hiding. Iran's leadership is in no better shape. Desperate and hiding. They've gone underground, cowering. That's what rats do. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, U.S. Department of War. Moving on to Army Counterintelligence Command. ACIC urges the Department of War personnel to remain vigilant of potential threats to our personnel, installations, and Department of War infrastructure abroad and within the homeland. Any suspicious activity should be immediately reported via your nearest Army CI field office, I salute, or 1-800-CALL-SPY. Report terrorism indicators and behaviors, advocating violence for terrorism, advocating support for terrorism, providing financial or other material support to terrorists, procuring supplies and equipment to terrorists, having contact, association, or connections to terrorists, expressing an obligation to engage in terroristic violence, attempting to recruit personnel for terrorism, also collecting intelligence for terrorists, familial ties or other close associations to terrorists, visiting terrorist websites, and expressing a hatred of American society, culture, government, or principles of the U.S. Constitution that imply support or connection to an international terrorist organization. I certainly hope that there are none of those individuals that are in our military ranks, and if there are, I could take a wild guess and assume when it was that they were recruited into the armed forces, probably during the Biden administration. That'd be my wild guess. Ambassador Mike Waltz, Iran wants to hold the world economy hostage. The Gulf Arab countries are dealing with this painful reality, and that's why they're standing with us to ensure Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, which for years President Trump warned about.
Look
on
at
CNN.
what they're doing to global energy supplies. Look at what they're trying to do in terms of constraining the world's economy with drones and boats. One could only imagine if they had a nuclear arsenal or if they had a nuclear weapon. That's what many of these Gulf Arab countries have woken up to, that they now realize, and why they've been so supportive and are standing with us as we seek to ensure this regime can never have a nuclear weapon, which President Trump has been consistent about for 10 years.
If not longer.
Yeah, Jake Tapper's perpetual face of confusion. Dude's like constantly confused about something. RNC Research, Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen threatens to defund the military during an active operation in Iran. Van Hollen says the best tool we have is to say no more dollars.
But you're right. At the end of the day, the best tool we have is to say no more dollars for this war that's making us less safe. And so I've been very clear. I will not support money for this Trump war.
Well, is that of any shock to anybody? Democrats are going to try as hard as they can to literally defund anything and everything, really. Anything that Trump touches, which is essentially the entire government, which it's kind of ironic because in years past, I would even include up till now, most Democrats are all about massive government, communism, seize the means of production, everybody gets everything fair across the board, and yet the Democrats are just targeting large swaths of our federal government for defunding. Find that quite interesting. Sean Parnell, this Democrat operative, has no idea what she's talking about, and it's shameful she'd slander our military like this. As someone who's actually been in these meetings, here are the facts. And all right, so before I read the rest of that, let's just find out what he's talking about. 60 Minutes, they went into this war prepared for certain threats like missiles. They did not go into this war prepared for other threats like drones hitting soft targets, says Mara Carlin, a former Pentagon official.
They went into this war prepared for certain threats like missiles. They did not go into this war prepared for other threats like
probably if Biden were in charge, I would probably tend to agree with you.
Drones,
thanks to DEI.
soft targets.
But we don't have that anymore in the military.
Worked at the Pentagon in
She's
both
behind on the
Democratic
times, man.
and Republican administrations. Her last job was Assistant Secretary of Defense for Strategy, Plans, and Capabilities. Is Iran doing anything that surprises you?
Not really. If anyone were
they're
to
losing.
war game this out, you knew there were a couple things the Iranian regime would do. They would always look at how to use cheap, tough-to-counter capabilities like drones in as many spots as possible.
Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out.
Within our arsenal
they've been
to
hemorrhaging their
confront the
economy for
drones?
years.
So I can't tell you that there is one magic solution that will do it. And frankly, that's kind of the history of warfare. You find multiple ways to counter different challenges, and then your enemy either catches up or they then get a counter to that counter.
While AV is not a household name, it's a leader in developing drones as well as lasers. But their lasers face stiff competition from some of the giants, including Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Countries are in the hunt as well. Israel has Iron Beam, part of the Iron Dome.
Yeah,
Ukraine
it's badass.
has a system.
Only costs $1 per shot.
And China just revealed its lasers in a large military parade.
Yeah, whatever. I think China is largely a paper tiger. I mean, pretty much all, well, not all, but from what I've heard, a lot of the munitions that China has sent over to Iran is malfunctioned or hasn't worked in any way or some way or another. The same with their drones. Apparently, they're not working as well as expected. Okay, so let me finish this up. As someone who's actually been in these meetings, here are the facts. And by the way, Sean Parnell, let's get a snapshot of his profile. Official account for the assistant to the Secretary of War for Public Affairs, Chief Pentagon spokesman, and senior advisor to the Secretary of War. And he says these are the facts. Before the department built up offensive combat power for Operation Epic Fury, we quietly ensured that our defensive posture was already in place, sparing no expense or capability. Our defensive shield over the Middle East is the most sophisticated air and missile defense network ever fielded. And Secretary Hegseth and our senior military leaders have, from the start, put the protection of our troops ahead of everything else and anticipated every desperate move Iran's radical regime has made. We are absolutely prepared for this fight. To suggest otherwise is a total fabrication. Well, yeah, and it goes to show that because they haven't shot down any of our fighters, probably not shot down any of our drones. I don't think that they've taken out a single one of our assets. The only asset that I know of that we lost was that refueling plane, and that was because there was a midair collision or something that happened, what I assume was during the refueling process, and something went wrong, and, we lost the plane, unfortunately. And aside from that, dude, I don't think Iran's really hit much of anything. I think that they got a couple of strikes in a few of our military bases, a couple of single shots. However, I think that, all things considered, I think we ain't doing too bad. All right, Tom Emmer, under current law, it's nearly impossible to denaturalize and deport naturalized citizens turned terrorists. That's why Senator Eric Schmidt and I introduced the SCAM Act. Denaturalizing America-hating terrorists is common sense and necessary for the security of our nation. And look, there's no reason that this shouldn't get passed. Republicans, they control the House, they control the Senate, they control the Oval Office, and they control the Supreme Court. And James Woods, he just pointed that out the other day. And he's like, this is a large reason why I announced the other day that I'm leaving the Republican Party, because they've got essentially control of everything. Of course, there's the Senate, the whole 60 votes and all that. I'm not sure where James Woods stands with nuking the filibuster. He's probably in favor of it because, let's be real, the Democrats are going to nuke it regardless. So it's just extremely frustrating that we've got Republicans have everything in their favor right now, and there's no reason that this shouldn't get passed. But of course, you really think it's going to get passed? I somehow doubt it.
And as far as these naturalized domestic terror attacks, this is why Senator Eric Schmidt and I introduced the SCAM Act about a month ago, a little bit more. The law is about denaturalizing people who have come to this country a little too steep. If you have committed a felony or if you have acted in concert with an international terrorist group, we should be able to denaturalize you and ship you back to where you came from.
100%.
These are things that currently are not
available
to us, and it's something that we need to get done.
Yeah, totally common sense, as is many things, if not most things, that Republicans usually draft and they try to put to the floor. Democrats, on the other hand, not really so much. Senator Dick Durbin, Democrats have asked immigration agents to take their masks off and abide by the rules outlined in our Constitution. Yeah, because it's in the Constitution that ICE agents totally aren't allowed to wear masks. But Republicans shut down the Department of Homeland Security to block these common sense measures. The Republicans. All right, so let's have a look. Grok, which party voted against the funding of the Department of Homeland Security in the Senate when the partial shutdown began on February 14th? Democrats voted against advancing the House-passed DHS funding bill in the Senate. On February 12, 13, 2026, the procedural vote failed 52-47, short of the 60 that are needed, with nearly all Democrats opposing it over demands for immigration enforcement reforms. Funding lapsed at midnight, February 14th, starting the partial shutdown. Multiple later attempts, 51-46 on March 12th, saw the same pattern. Democrats blocked full funding. It's that simple. And, of course, whenever they say that, well, Republicans shut it down. No, they didn't. Nope. So in case you didn't know, they didn't. It was the Democrats that shut it down. Remember, we need 60 votes in the Senate, not a simple majority like you get in the House. We need 60. And there aren't 60 Republicans in the Senate. So, therefore, Democrats, they shut down Department of Homeland Security. Eric Daugherty breaking Trump DHS Secretary nominee Mark Wayne Mullen is about to be fast-tracked to Senate confirmation, and mass deportations will continue. John Fetterman may be one of the only Democrats voting to confirm him. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats will do anything to block deportations, including shutting down DHS for weeks because they betray America. Confirm Mark Wayne Mullen, no delays. Let's hope not.
Now we have a new Senator Mullen coming in, and perhaps I might be one of the only Democrats to vote for him.
You heard it from Fetterman himself.
I've had a great conversation with him. Now we have a new Senator.
Okay, well, and of course they're both senators, so I'm sure Fetterman knows Mark Wayne Mullen quite well, and I'm sure he knows that he's a real stand-up guy. Speaker Mike Johnson, delayed at the airport, thank a Democrat. Democrats have voted repeatedly to protect criminal illegal aliens and prevent our own American TSA agents from getting paychecks. Democrats have chosen to make the American people suffer just so illegal aliens can stay in our country.
TSA employees are currently working without pay for the second time in 6 months.
DHS says more than 300 of its TSA workers have quit since February.
Airport officials.
Honestly, I'm surprised it's that low.
Longer than average wait times due to a shortage of TSA workers.
TSA wait times here at Hobby Airport still sitting at about 3 hours this morning.
Officials at Hobby Airport are telling passengers to show up 3 to 4 hours before their flight.
The airport is warning TSA wait times could be 3 hours or more.
High demand and fewer open checkpoints because of TSA staffing shortages are what's causing these massive wait times.
Good grief. So dramatic. But yeah, man, I don't envy anybody going on spring break this year. And it really sucks because when you go on vacation, you just want to be stress-free, worry-free. And like I've said before, if you're waiting in line for 3 or 4 hours and you have a Democrat senator representing you, call their office. Call them repeatedly until they pick up the phone. If you get a voicemail or whatever, just leave a message and then call them back until they freaking answer the phone so you can let them know that you're waiting in line for hours and this is bullshit. So, I mean, I'm not traveling anywhere for spring break, thank God. I live in a spring break destination already, so not that I'm going to be going to the beach anytime soon. Probably not till next month. I mean, the water's too cold anyway. I got to wait for it to be 80 degrees, so I'm a cold water pansy. All right, Secretary Kristi Noem, because she's still the Secretary of Homeland Security, it is high time for the Democrats to end the DHS shutdown. TSA officers missed their most recent paycheck on Friday as a result of the Democrats' DHS shutdown for the third time in nearly 6 months. As Americans across the nation face hours-long wait times at airports, Democrats continue to play political games while TSA officers and travelers pay the highest price. And you know what? I thought it was also for the third time in 6 months. The previous video said that it was the second time in 6 months. I know that the Democrats have at least partially shut down the government 3 times in the last 6 months, although I don't know if the first of those 3 times affected TSA or not. I mean, Kristi Noem says that it does. Rapid Response 47, Democrats shut down DHS, withholding paychecks from our TSA workers. This is the result. In Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Good morning, travelers. Here it is a 4:30 a.m. view of the general security line for checkpoint 1. We are expecting a record-breaking volume of people. There are about 38,000 of you flying out today. Please arrive at least 2.5 hours prior to your flight's departure for domestic. And let's have a look at the line. Outside, man. Freaking outside. It's like the grand opening of a theme park attraction. God, man, that is so ridiculous. Every one of these people should be on the phone calling their senator. If you don't have a Democrat senator, call Chuck Schumer. He's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. That's exactly what I'd be doing, because thank God I don't have a Democrat representing me. But I'd be on the phone trying to get a hold of Chuck Schumer's office waiting in that line. I would, honestly, if it were me, I would definitely be arriving probably a lot more than 2.5 hours. I'd probably be arriving like 4 or 5 hours early just to be sure. But I don't know, that's just me. All right, Steve Scalise. This week, Democrat members of Congress will fly back to D.C. and walk right past TSA agents. Who are some of the 100,000 DHS employees missing paychecks because Democrats refuse to vote to end the DHS shutdown? They're still doing their jobs. Democrats should do theirs. And you know what? They probably, when they're walking past those Democrat senators, when they're walking through the airport, guaranteed they won't even look them in the eye. They'll go out of their way to try to avoid any and all contact with TSA. Probably because they're at the point now where they might even recognize 1 or 2 of those Democrat senators to start calling them out. Look, if they're on the job, maybe they don't want to rock that boat. Because, knowing Democrats and the senators, they probably would place a phone call and it would actually work, regardless if Trump is running, if he's, running the show with his administration. All right. RNC research, the impact of the Democrats' DHS shutdown is causing agents to stress. Borek says people are terrified. People are scared. They don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We got another one from CNN.
People are terrified. People are scared. They don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. A lot of them are trying... they're having mental breakdowns. They're having where am I going to get a meal?
Yeah, and there's really no incentive for anybody to join TSA. Not at this point. Not if they're going to use them as political pawns. Look, why would you want to join TSA when you've got other parts? If you want to work for the federal government, there's certainly other places that you could work for. Of course, U.S. Secret Service, they're not getting their paychecks right now. FEMA, they're not getting their paychecks. And the Coast Guard, they're not getting their paychecks either. So it's not just TSA. Attorney General Pamela Bondi, man, this is great news. New legal victory. The First Circuit Court just ruled that the Trump administration can continue deporting illegal aliens to third countries. There is more work ahead on this important issue, but this is a key win for the president's immigration agenda. The Justice Department attorneys will continue fighting tirelessly to advance and protect President Trump's policies in court. And in case you want a little more detail on this, let's see what Grok provided. In DVD versus DHS, the First Circuit today, on March 16th of 2026, today, granted the administration's emergency stay pending appeal of the February district court ruling that blocked third country deportations. The policy lets DHS remove migrants with final orders to countries other than their origin without notice or a fear of persecution interview if home country removal isn't feasible. Expedited briefing starts soon. One judge dissented, likely SCOTUS bound. So there you go. So yeah, they're not sending people maliciously to a country that's not their country just because, F them. That's what they get for coming in illegally. At least according to Grok, they only do so if the country that they're originally from is just, war-torn, or if they don't have the infrastructure to take in illegal immigrants that are being deported. Whatever the case might be, I have no idea. I'm sure that there's good reasons behind their inability to fly certain people to certain countries. FBI Director Kash Patel weekly watch. Under President Trump's leadership, 7 of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives have been captured in just the past year. 7 out of 10. Almost like, 70%, man? I mean, ain't that hard to do that kind of math, but yeah, man, 70% of the top 10 FBI most wanted fugitives have been caught. That's probably never happened. Maybe it has. To catch that many on the top 10 list. Some of them have been sitting on that list for years. There's 1 or 2 that have been on there since like the early 2000s, and they're still on that list. At least if I'm thinking of the right 2. One of them was on there since like the 90s, I think, and he was one of the 7 that was just caught last year. If you're on the run from American justice, your time is running out. We are coming. And he's probably got this article, which maybe I'll try to grab the names from the article, but I'm not going to read through it in any detail. Yeah, see, Kash Patel, he always drops the article. Some do, some don't, but FBI Director Patel usually does. FBI adds 3 more fugitives to most wanted list after 7 have been caught by the Trump administration. The FBI Director Kash Patel announced that 3 new fugitives are being added to the 10 most wanted fugitives list in a script of an internal FBI video obtained by Breitbart News regarding the 76th anniversary of the FBI's 10 most wanted program. Patel announced that Trung Duc Liu, Anibal Aguilera, and Samuel Ramirez Jr. have been added to the list. And looks like this is probably going to be the direct link to that list. Yeah, it is. So the 10 most wanted fugitives. So here you go. So this is the updated one. Dude was just caught recently. I think he was caught last week. And so they've got another one that they're going to have to add to the list. I believe this guy, he's been on the list for a long time. The other ones don't look familiar. The guy that I was thinking from the 90s or the 2000s, I don't see him on here either. So he must have been one of the 7 that got caught. All right. I'm here outside of CRIM division this week, or CRIM, to tell you about 3 new fugitives we just added to the list. Patel shared that Duc Liu had been added to the list for his alleged role in the 2014 kidnapping, torture, and murder of 2 Vietnamese brothers. Aguilera, meanwhile, was added to the list for his alleged role leading an international ATM jackpotting scheme for Tren de Aragua since at least 2024. He was also noted to be the first ever cyber fugitive added to the list. Ramirez was added to the FBI list for his alleged role in the 2023 murder of 2 women during a shooting at a bar. Patel praised Team Seattle, Legat, Mexico City, and the FBI's Government of Mexico partner for their work as Ramirez was arrested and returned to Washington State to face justice after nearly 3 years on the run. And I'll have that link below, that Breitbart article, if you want to have a look at that. And Rep. Lauren Boebert, Virginia Democrats are working to pass gun control measures while exempting state lawmakers themselves. Rules for thee, but not for me. Seriously, it's shameful. So, Grok, is this true? Virginia lawmakers will retain open access to the weapons and magazines they seek to ban? No, it's not true. It's not true, apparently. Virginia's passed Bill SB 749, now with Governor Spanberger, bans new sales, imports, purchases, and transfers of assault-style firearms and large-capacity magazines for everyone after July 1st of 2026. No possession ban on pre-owned ones and no special exemption for lawmakers or legislators in the final text. Okay, so there you go. At least that's according to Grok. You can choose to believe Grok, which is, at the end of the day, it's an AI bot, or you can believe Lauren Boebert, who is a member of Congress. They follow the exact same rules as any citizen. The rules for the framing misreads the bill or an early draft. Okay, so maybe she's talking about an early draft of the bill. But didn't the Supreme Court just rule on that high-capacity magazine issue that California, they passed a law some years back that banned all magazines that were over 5 rounds. I want to say that came up sometime recently, that the Supreme Court struck that down. And effectively, like, no state can put out a law like that because it infringes on our Second Amendment rights. Maybe I'm wrong. If you have any information on that, drop that in the comments because I'd be curious to know. I mean, I suppose I could look it up, but maybe I'll do so after the episode, and I might bring that up on tomorrow's episode. All right. You know what? Don't worry about it because I just looked it up myself with the magic of the pause button. And no, I must be imagining things because I guess that wasn't an issue. I could have sworn I saw something like that, though. However, maybe this is what I saw. In 2025, the court declined to hear several challenges to state bans on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, letting lower court decisions upholding those bans stand for now. Justices like Thomas Alito, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh have signaled interest in taking up assault weapon AR-15 issues soon, but no grant of certiorari or ruling has occurred on them yet. Multiple such petitions, such as Maryland, Illinois, California magazine bans, have been relisted or pending without action. Okay, so maybe you could say there's been some movement on it, but not nearly enough. And we got this from Rob Schneider, just simply let's go. And from my rep, Anna Paulina Luna, it is time for a convention of states. You don't hear that come up very often, convention of states. I believe that we're actually not pretty far from it. You have to have, what is it, like 2/3, 70% of the states. I'd have to look at it again. It's been a while since I've read up on the convention of states, but I don't think that red states are pretty far away from having the number needed to have a convention of states, but we've never had one before. I know that the Constitution says that one can be convened, in which case the Constitution can be amended and written in certain ways, if not completely. Again, I'd have to read up on the convention of states again. It's been a while. But we've never had one before, so we really don't know what one would really honestly look like, because I don't think the Constitution lays out like all the parameters for what a convention of states would actually look like. But it would be quite interesting and definitely like a once in a lifetime. It would be a first. Congress will never term limit itself, and as you are seeing, it is broken. Too many of these cats get up to DC and hop onto the uniparty train. The problem is the uniparty doesn't work for you, it works for special interests. Yeah, and along the way, not just term limits, but how about we just dismantle and dissolve K Street completely, get rid of lobbying across the board. No more lobbyists, because they serve the interests of corporate America, man. They don't serve the interests of the American people, and that's what Congress should be putting first and foremost. Sherry Unfiltered, breaking. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna is unleashing hell on the Senate swamp rats. Rep. Luna is calling out the gutless Senate Republicans hiding behind their pathetic talking filibuster to block the Save America Act. She's demanding House Republicans primary every single one of these spineless crooks who refuse to step up and do their jobs. Luna's words, quote, "The House GOP has a lot of flamethrowers. Every single senator that is hiding behind the talking filibuster needs to be primaried by one of the House members with a spine. POTUS should hold off on endorsing any more senators until they do their jobs." Luna is warning, quote, "This week the Senate will learn all their bills will die in the House until they can get election integrity passed. We will kill every single one of their bills for as long as it takes. Patience is wearing thin, patriots. The deep state puppets in the Senate are betraying us all. Time to burn them out with primaries and force the Save America Act through. No more excuses, no more delays. This is the way to drain the swamp." Who else fired up? Tag Rep. Luna, share this far and wide, and let's primary the traitors. And look, that's, at the end of the day, it just comes down to the state where these swamp rats are representing. People down on the state level, you got to find somebody who can take up the mantle for senator of your state and who's got the charisma and who will actually get this done and not turn into another swamp rat, because it appears to be quite contagious, unfortunately. All right, the Gateway Pundit, war in the GOP. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna calls for primary challenges against Rhino senators blocking the Save America Act, urges convention of states to bypass the corrupt D.C. Uniparty. This is on the Gateway Pundit. I can't remember if they paywall it. I don't think they paywall, do they? I don't think they do. But I'll have this link below, so this is more information and more detail as far as what Rep. Anna Paulina Luna is pushing for, and you can find that below in the description. RNC Research, Rep. Wasserman Schultz lies about the Save America Act. She says this is about ensuring it is much harder for people who are unlikely to go to the polls and vote for Republicans to cast their ballot. Yeah, dude, that's an outright lie.
Say that this is just about voters having to show ID and proof of citizenship in order to vote. What's wrong with that?
This is about one thing, ensuring that it is much harder for people who are unlikely to go to the polls and vote for Republicans, and that making it much harder for them to cast their ballot. Putting obstacles in the path of people who simply want to exercise their right to vote, which is the most precious right we have, is absolutely abhorrent.
Well, and what the Save America Act allows, it allows for, on the state level, for them to determine how they can bridge the gap between a woman who has changed her last name and her current last name that she took, her husband's last name, and her birth certificate with her maiden name. It's up to the states, as far as I understand, to bridge that gap. So if a state says present your marriage certificate, which bridges that gap between your current last name and your maiden name, then so be it. And Democrat states, like, they can make it as easy as they can possibly make it for a U.S. citizen to prove that they're a U.S. citizen by way of their birth certificate or their passport. And they keep saying that, well, women, they've changed their last name, so it doesn't match their birth certificate. Well, the Save America Act allows the state to make that determination. So all these blue states, that's all they have to do. Just tell the women who had their last names changed, bring your marriage certificate. Because I would go off on a limb and say the vast majority of women who are married out there really cherish and treasure their marriage certificate. I highly doubt that they're going to let anything happen to it or allow it to get misplaced. I know a lot of people, they frame their marriage certificates. All right, Caroline Leavitt, replying to the press secretary, who is Caroline Leavitt, she says, pass the Save America Act, and we got a video from Fox News.
On another matter here at home, President Trump is urging Congress to pass the Save America Act, one of the most critical pieces of legislation in our nation's history. The Save America Act is overwhelmingly popular with all Americans because each provision is rooted in common sense. The Save America Act has 5 simple requirements as requested by the President of the United States. Number 1, voters have to show ID to cast a ballot in an American election.
Show ID.
Very simple.
Very simple.
90% of Americans, including more than 80% of Democrat voters, agree with this. Number 2, the Save America Act will require
but it's still a majority.
all voters to show proof of citizenship in order to register to vote in American elections. Again, this is popular and rooted in common sense.
Very popular.
Only American citizens have the right to vote in American
Only Americans.
elections. But after Joe Biden and the Democrats allowed tens of millions of illegal aliens into our country, it's more important than ever to ensure that only American citizens are registering to vote on our nation's voter rolls, and Congress needs to pass this. Number 3, the Save America Act abolishes the incredibly unsecure practice of universal mail-in ballots, which throw the door wide open for fraud. Importantly, the Save America Act maintains exceptions for Americans to use mail-in ballots like for illness, disability, military, or travel reasons. The bipartisan 2005 report of the Commission on Federal Election Reform, chaired by
I wish they would clear the air on the birth certificate thing, leaving it up to the states.
Former Secretary of State James Baker concluded that, quote, absentee ballots remain the largest source of potential voter fraud, and it is time for Congress to finally address this. Number 4, the Save America Act permanently bans men from competing in women's sports. President Trump signed a landmark executive order upholding the promise of Title IX and ending this dangerous and unfair
focus on voter
practice.
ID.
But now it's time for Congress to codify this into law. Number 5, the Save America Act.
Look, I don't like that whole women or men and women's sports thing. Look, that should be a separate bill. It is extremely important, and I don't want to downplay it in any way, but this should be focusing strictly on voter ID as it pertains to voting, because by attaching that to the Save America Act, you're almost kind of like twisting the knife into the backs of Democrats, which, okay, to a lot of people, that's the entire idea. Okay, so I get that argument too. However, we should be trying to keep it as even keel as possible in order to get this thing passed without ruffling too many feathers.
And transgender mutilation surgery for children.
Again, highly
President
important.
Trump signed a common
Those two
sense
things should be on their own
executive
bill.
order to do this and kept
Just my
his
opinion.
promise to the American people, but now Congress needs to do the same and codify it. It's well past time for Democrats in Congress to stop perpetuating the radical and false claim that you can somehow change a child's sex. You cannot. Passing the Save America Act is the most important thing that Republicans and, frankly, Democrats can do to strengthen election integrity and protect our democracy. It's what the American people elected
Democrats love
Republicans
that
to
word.
do, and they must deliver on it as soon as possible. The president is calling on Congress to get the job done and send this historic piece of legislation to his desk immediately for signature.
Yeah, and will it get done? Let's hope so. Let's hope it gets done. Maybe Rep. Ana Paulina Luna is onto something. Just refused to pass any Senate bills that come into the House. Not sure if that would be enough. Although, it's better than nothing at this point. You might as well just start throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. Breaking: Senator Eric Schmitt will be adding President Trump's key demands to the Save America Act when it hits the floor this week. No transgender for kids, ban men and women's sports, and no mail-in ballots besides military and illness. No brainers.
On the Save America Act as the Senate gears up for a vote on Wednesday. Senate Majority Leader John Thune casting doubt over using the talking filibuster to get this over the finish line, saying
I think he's only putting it to a floor so he can say, I told you wouldn't pass.
Chuck Schumer said about
that
his
was a waste of
party
time.
Using the talking filibuster back when he was Majority Leader.
If the Republicans block cloture on the legislation before us, I will put forward a proposal to change the rules.
What a clown world period in our lives.
To allow for a talking filibuster on this legislation, as recommended by a number of our colleagues who have been working on this reform.
Why is Chuck Schumer too good to wear a mask?
Joining me now ahead of his Save America tour,
So
early
stupid.
vote action founder
Fucking
Scott
retarded.
Pressler. On the
Scott
Save
Pressler.
America Act as the Senate gears up.
So we don't get to hear from Scott Pressler. That's all right. We heard from Scott Pressler yesterday. It was probably the same interview. ABC News. Just in, a judge has temporarily blocked several of Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s changes to childhood vaccine policy, including when Kennedy reduced the number of recommended shots. This is on ABC News. Pretty much everybody in the mainstream is talking about it. I just grabbed it from ABC News. A Massachusetts judge ruled on Monday in favor of medical organizations and their litigation against Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over several of his changes to federal vaccine policy. District Judge Brian Murphy temporarily blocked changes to the childhood vaccine schedule that were made at the beginning of this year, in which Kennedy reduced the number of recommended shots from 17 to 11. The judge also suspended the appointments of the 13 members of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Vaccine Advisory Committee, who were all appointed unilaterally by Kennedy after he fired all the preceding members. So they really weren't happy about that. Finally, the judge stayed all votes taken by the Kennedy-nominated members, which included the removal of the universal recommendation for the hepatitis B shot at birth and to narrow existing recommendations for the combined MMRV shot that protects against measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox. Yeah, because judges are totally doctors. They absolutely are experts in the medical field. There is a method to how these decisions historically have been made, a method scientific in nature and codified into law through procedural requirements, Murphy wrote in his opinion. Well, I think that was exactly what Secretary Kennedy was doing. He was using scientific studies, namely studies that came out of Europe, where they use far less vaccines on their children than we use over here. And for some reason, children in Europe appear a lot healthier than our children. I wonder why. Unfortunately, the government has disregarded those methods and thereby undermined the integrity of its actions. I guess Europe is just, must be a third world hellhole, according to this judge. Murphy did not grant the preliminary injunction in full, but temporarily stayed the policy changes. The Trump administration can appeal the decision. The ruling was expected this week as the Vaccine Committee, known as the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP, was scheduled to meet this Wednesday and Thursday. The judge ruled that the meeting would still be allowed to move forward. Oh, well, thanks for your blessing. With legal counsel for the plaintiffs saying it would be improper. ACIP, as currently constituted, cannot meet for how a committee meet without nearly the entirety of its membership, Murphy wrote. However, an HHS official confirmed to ABC News that the ACIP meeting has been postponed. HHS looks forward to this judge's decision being overturned, just like his other attempts to keep the Trump administration from governing, HHS spokesperson Andrew Nixon said in a statement. Last summer, the American Academy of Pediatrics, along with organizations including the American College of Physicians and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, filed a lawsuit over what they called unlawful unilateral vaccine changes. Well, I'm sure they had a lot of money behind that. Big Pharma, man. Big Pharma really wants all of this to be reinstated. The lawsuit claimed HHS violated the Administrative Procedure Act, a U.S. federal law that establishes procedures federal agencies must follow when making rules. ABC News has reached out to HHS for comment on the claim that it did not follow the APA. Well, yeah, of course, they're going to be calling about that. Nothing about, what studies did you use to make that determination? Oh, okay, European studies? Well, which ones? Like, you'd think they'd be asking those questions as to why did you reduce it from 17 down to 11? There's probably a good reason behind it, and there is. Today's ruling is a historic and welcomes outcome for children, communities, and pediatricians everywhere. Dr. Andrew Racine, AAP president, said in a statement, "This decision effectively means that a science-based process for developing immunization recommendations is not to be trifled with and represents a critical step to restoring scientific decision-making to federal vaccine policy that has kept children healthy for years." Well, dude, I would kind of push back against that. We are by far the most unhealthy nation on the planet. And what is the autism rate up to now? Is it 1 in 35 children? And back in the 90s, when we probably didn't have that many vaccinations, but maybe we did, I don't know. But I know back in the 90s, it was like 1 in every 10,000 children had autism. And now we're all the way up to 1 in 35. Liz Churchill, you cannot hate these liars enough. Dr. Mike says, "I've never been compensated by a vaccine company." CMS documents show Dr. Mike has received over $1 million from vaccine companies. Dr. Mike, lockdowns work. Get vaccinated. Dr. Mike, seen partying in Florida during lockdowns. And those medical experts in the ABC News article, probably the exact same type of people.
I have never been compensated by a vaccine company.
Dr. Mike has said that he's never been compensated by a vaccine company.
That was loud. Sorry about that.
But publicly available records tell a different story that raises questions. According to the U.S. government's CMS Open Payments Database, which tracks financial relationships between doctors and pharmaceutical companies, payments associated with Abbott Laboratories linked to Dr. Mikhail Varshovsky total more than $1 million.
F-King wow,
Abbott
man.
is one of the largest flu vaccine manufacturers. So,
of course
Dr. Mike, how do you reconcile those records with your statement that you've never taken money from a vaccine company?
That's some dirty, dirty business, man. Taking money from big pharma, big vaccine companies. God knows how many doctors made an absolute fortune during the COVID era alone. All right, Rapid Response 47. 2 major drug companies are the latest to join Trump RX. We're going to find this on Fox Business. And let's see what these companies are. The White House is expecting to announce an expansion of drug makers offering discounts to TrumpRx.gov. As early as today, Amgen and GSK will be added to the list of prescription drug manufacturers offering discounts on the government website. It makes a total of 54 prescription medications from 6 pharmaceutical companies that have signed on to the most favored nation pricing under pressure from President Trump and the threat of tariffs. Amgen will offer medication on the website that cuts 80% off the retail price. Amgevita has an original price of $1,484, but will be available on TrumpRx.gov for just $2.99. The medication treats rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, and ulcerative colitis. So, yeah, very painful. The company plans to list iMovig, and Repatha for discounts of 62%. GSK will discount Incruse at 55% of the retail price. The drug treats COPD and will be listed at $159. GSK also plans to list Arnudi and Relenza and Anoro at discounts ranging from 10 to 51%. And it looks like their stocks are ticking up just a little bit. GSK and Amgen connecting with TrumpRx.gov to offer prescription drugs directly to consumers in most favored nations pricing marks another milestone for President Trump's affordability push. White House spokesperson Kush Desai told Fox Business, TrumpRx.gov is just the beginning, however, as Americans are set to receive even greater drug pricing discounts, lower insurance premiums, and more transparency when Congress passes President Trump's great healthcare plan. Yeah, that's definitely something to look forward to. Requiring healthcare providers to itemize everything with regard to what you're getting when you're at, whether it's the clinic or the hospital or what have you. I mean, always should have been available. Ambassador Mike Waltz, thank God for President Trump's energy dominance agenda from incentivizing fracking to drill, baby, drill. It's a little rich that the progressive left is complaining about oil prices when they have been literally putting policies in place to drive up prices for years to push people to wind, solar, and EVs. Just like Greta Thunberg. If you watched my video that I posted late last night, she was complaining about how the United States is cutting off Cuba from the oil supply they were getting from Venezuela, and how that's just so evil and just so dangerous of us to do. But why not just ship them a whole shitload of solar panels, Greta Thunberg? Why not do that?
Thank God for President Trump's energy dominance agenda. Everything from opening up ANWR, new pipeline in Alaska, incentivizing fracking.
Confused.
What we're going to see come out of Venezuela and Guyana in the coming months and years. This is why we have to be energy independent. And I have to just say, it's a little rich coming from the progressive left, who has literally been at war against oil. Literally, we're
forever
putting policies in place to drive up the price of oil in order to force Americans to buy EVs and go to wind and solar. Are now suddenly celebrating it or decrying the lack of it. Like I said, it's a little bit rich. We have the energy dominance in place. But to your point on escorts, look, back in the 80s, under the tanker wars, then the last time Iran tried to constrain global energy supplies, you had French, United Kingdom, even Soviet Union forces in there escorting their tankers out that were heading to their markets.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think that's what President Trump is calling upon the world, saying the entire world is affected. Iran can't hold your economies hostage.
Yeah, maybe with the exception of Japan.
We certainly welcome, encourage, and even demand their participation to help their own economies. And meanwhile, the U.S. military will continue to pound the Iranian military, their missile, boat, and drone forces to keep the straits open.
Yeah, although it would probably get a little hairy if China started sending in their vessels to protect their oil interests in the Strait of Hormuz. I could see where that could get a little complicated. Secretary Sean Duffy, major storm today impacting flights nationwide. At least 2,000 flights are canceled, more than 9,500 delays. And this is on top of the whole TSA nightmare. Current ground stops at Hartsfield, Jackson, Atlanta International Airport, and Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Current ground delay program at George Bush Intercontinental Airport. Please check your flight status before heading to the airport and visit nasstatus.faa.gov. And I'll have that linked below. Probably a good site to bookmark if you fly frequently. You probably already have this, to be honest. I mean, I would if I flew all the time. So probably not going to affect anybody at this point. You know, anybody who might be watching this, gotten this far into the video, because I think that the storms have pretty much passed. We got the strong storms from this whole weather system just a couple of hours ago. So, you know, if it's already down my way, it's probably already swept through the whole country by now. Okay. Eric Daugherty, just in, President Trump gives a massive shout out to Chief of Staff Susie Wiles after she was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. Quote, an amazing person, an amazing fighter, in good shape. She'll be around for a long time.
Also, introduce Susie Wiles, who's fantastic. She's our Chief of Staff, and she's an amazing person, an amazing fighter. And she announced a minor difficulty, which will be in good shape for. He'll be around for a long time. She had a diagnosis. You probably saw it, and she's going to take care of it immediately.
Apparently, the doctors caught it early,
as opposed to waiting. She said, "Let's do it now." I said, "Do it immediately," because with that particular ailment, the faster the better. That's the only thing I know about it. The faster the better. She's going to do it immediately. So she just started, actually, and she's going to be in great shape. The prognosis there is excellent.
Yeah, catch it early.
So
for sure.
But who needs it, right?
That's right.
Who needs it?
Yeah, really. Well, that's pretty much the case for all types of cancers. VA Secretary Doug Collins, Susie is as tough as they come. Her dedication to this country is unmatched, and I have no doubt she will approach this battle with the same resolve she brings to the West Wing every day. Lisa and I are sending our prayers for a swift recovery. Lots of people in the Trump administration, lots of officials, the same with members of Congress. They were all echoing the same message in their own words, of course. From President Trump's Truth Social, Susie Wiles is an incredible chief of staff, a great person, and one of the strongest people I know. But unfortunately, she's been diagnosed with early stage breast cancer and has decided to take on this challenge immediately as opposed to waiting. She has a fantastic medical team and her prognosis is excellent. During the treatment period, she will be spending virtually full time at the White House, which makes me as president very happy. Her strength and her commitment to continue doing the job she loves and does so well while undergoing treatment tells you everything you need to know about her. Susie, as one of my closest and most important advisors, is tough and deeply committed to serving the American people. She will soon be better than ever. Melania and I are with her in every way, and we look forward to working with Susie on the many big and wonderful things that are happening for the benefit of our country. President Donald J. Trump. So this was all over the X platform today. If you find yourself just scrolling through government circles, the machine, a lot of people had this circulating around. So, of course, with this show being the swamp, I got to include it. I mean, of course, why not? From JD Vance, the Vance family is praying for our dear friend as she takes on her next fight. And of course, we just read President Trump's Truth Social. And this is from Susie Wiles herself. Last week, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Nearly 1 in 8 women in the United States will face this diagnosis. Every day, these women continue to raise their families, go to work, and serve their communities with strength and determination. I now join their ranks. I am grateful to have an outstanding team of doctors who detected the cancer early and are guiding my care, and I am encouraged by a very good prognosis. I'm also deeply thankful for the support and encouragement of President Trump as I undergo treatment and continue serving in my role as White House Chief of Staff. So yeah, that was good news that they caught it early. A lot of people caught that. It's obviously going viral, and hopefully she'll pull through just fine. And from ACRYN CNN, breaking news, Cuba's electrical grid has suffered a complete and total collapse. This is according to the country's power operator. It's the first nationwide blackout since the U.S. effectively shut off the flow of oil to Cuba. I believe that I read that they had something like 3 months worth of oil supply on hand to keep their power grid operational, but they just ran out. I believe that it was something like 8 days ago. They actually ran out of their emergency oil supply, and the entire country is being plunged into darkness.
And breaking news into CNN, Cuba's electrical grid has suffered a complete and total collapse. This is according to the country's power operator. It's the first nationwide blackout since the U.S. effectively shut off the flow of oil to Cuba.
Yep, that it is. And they're in talks with the Trump administration, the leaders of the Cuban regime. And I'm not sure what we might see in the future, but it sounds like we might actually start to see some real movement with the Cuban embargo. That would be fantastic. I would totally be on board with trying a Cuban cigar. Gunfire erupts at Florida beach, sending spring breakers fleeing. Wild scenes unfolded over the weekend in Daytona Beach, Florida, as gunshots forced thousands of spring break revelers to scatter from crowded beaches. Footage from hotel balconies captured screaming sunbathers running for cover and shots rang out, marking at least 4 separate shootings reported in the city since Friday. Authorities have not confirmed whether anyone was injured in the beachside incidents. Police said one shooting followed a fight at the Joint Bar near the beach strip on Friday, though no injuries were reported. Hours later, another person was shot outside a nearby Crunch Fitness. 2 additional shootings occurred along the beach on Saturday. Investigators are working to determine whether the violence is directly linked to spring break festivities as chaotic scenes persisted throughout the weekend. And what's really ironic about this is that Florida is a constitutional state. You don't have to have the government's permission to conceal or open carry, at least not as of now, because our Supreme Court struck down the open carry ban that was implemented, I think it was in 1986. Let's take a look at this.
Come to Daytona and you see this bullshit like that, bro. What the f*** you running from, bro? Like, oh my God.
Good grief. Here comes the cavalry. Well, there you go, man. Gunshots ringing out in Florida during spring break. Good grief. Coach Tommy Tuberville, Europe has fallen. America is next if we don't wake up. Check this out. The 150-year-old Vondelkerk Church in the Netherlands was set on fire by Muslim migrants. That is just written by Western invasion. I have no personal confirmation if it was set by a Muslim migrant. I'm just going to take it as, take it with a grain of salt because this is the X platform at the end of the day. Not 100% sure that this was set by a Muslim migrant, unless in this 12 seconds that we get ironclad proof of it. I would just say, be skeptical. I'm not saying that they didn't. I mean, there's probably a pretty fair chance that did happen. Although, what was the official ruling with Notre Dame? It was an electrical fire or something like that burned it down. Of course, it's got its own, conspiracies in and of itself. That's really in the same or similar vein. But man, this is horrible. I mean, when Notre Dame burned down, I was of the opinion that it was a sign from God, because just over the years, just fewer and fewer people were still practicing Christianity or were Christians, especially in Europe. And I thought that was a sign from God that, well, you know what, if you're not going to have any use for this church, then I'm just going to turn it back into ash. From ashes to ashes, dust to dust, Okay. So I don't know, man. Hopefully they'll get to the bottom of who the hell did that, if it was set intentionally. Hubble. So we're at the end of the episode. Let's get to the heart of it. This new image from Hubble and NASA's James Webb Space Telescope takes a closer look at the core of Messier 101, also known as the Pinwheel Galaxy. At 25 million light years away, M101 is one of the closest face-on spiral galaxies to us, which means that we're effectively looking directly down at the galaxy, and we're able to see it. Like, we're not getting a side view like we see in the Milky Way, and like we're inside the Milky Way galaxy, so we can't see the overhead view of it. We can only see it at the razor thin line. Well, not razor thin, but I think you know what I mean. But anyway, this is a pretty cool image, and it's highly detailed, man. 25 million light years away is a long ass way away. To be able to get that level of detail, that's nothing short of incredible. And let's see what we got. Messier 101. So there it is. That's the Pinwheel Galaxy, a full front view of it. Most galaxies are either tilted or they're just at a different angle. But yeah, man, the Pinwheel Galaxy is we're in that unique position to see it just straight on. The stunning view of M101, also known as the Pinwheel Galaxy, is one of the largest images Hubble has captured of a spiral galaxy, assembled from 51 exposures taken during various studies over nearly 10 years. This infrared invisible light image measures 16,000 by 12,000 pixels. Ground-based images were used to fill in the portions of the galaxy that Hubble did not observe. The giant spiral disk of stars, dust and gas is 170,000 light years across. And for comparison, the Milky Way galaxy is about 100,000 light years across. So the Pinwheel Galaxy is substantially bigger, and it contains at least 1 trillion stars. Depending on who you ask, the Milky Way has 200 billion stars. A lot of other people assume that we have 400 billion stars in our galaxy. But Andromeda and the Andromeda Galaxy, that's our next door neighbor. It has at least 1 trillion stars that they estimate. And of course, the Pinwheel Galaxy, also 1 trillion stars. So by comparison, the Milky Way, it's kind of a small galaxy that we find ourselves in. And of course, that's where you can find M101 if you happen to have a telescope and you want to check it out. I'm sure if you got a good enough telescope, you shouldn't have any problem seeing it. And if you go to this link here, Hubble's largest galaxy portrait offers a new high-definition view. It takes you to this image, and you can click on what appears to be the download button, but it doesn't download it. It just takes you to the next page. I'm sure you could right-click and save as. Maybe that's how you can do it, but you can zoom in this way, and it actually zooms in pretty far. It kind of loses like its resolution a bit, but still, I mean, it just keeps zooming in. That's a galaxy, of course. And I mean, that's some impressive detail. I mean, even though it gets a bit grainy when you zoom in, crazy close, but still, I mean, that'd make a nice wallpaper for your computer. That'd be pretty cool. But anyway, that is going to do it for this episode. And here is one last look. There it is. All right, I got it. There we go. Kind of dealing with some technical difficulties. All right. It's a work in progress. I'm still fairly new to OBS. I just figured out the whole scenes thing, so I can actually switch from one screen to another. So I'll get better at it as time goes on. I actually have an outro video in the works that I might put on this screen. So I'll have something like animating that'll hopefully make it look a little bit better. But In the meantime, if you enjoyed tonight's video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'll be back tomorrow night as we explore the swamp Monday through Friday and everyone in it, the politicians, bureaucrats, agencies, and the administration. I also post daily on X, which is where you can peek at the content for the next episode. And don't forget, the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow during the 8 a.m. Eastern hour. Thank you very much for watching. Always remember to stay positive. God bless the troops, and God bless America.